What's up, fam? Extraordinary Life with Elijah, and wanted to do a video this week and just kind of pump it out really quick. So much going on right now. I think a secondary lesson is that regardless of how busy you are, you always have time for the things that God has called you to. And this is one of those things in my life. God has called me to do this, and so I invest the time in it. It's a sacrifice, but I invest the time. Yeah, side lesson, I gotta stay on track. Don't get distracted. But God's been teaching me about this reality of loosing and binding. And I heard an insight in a message, just kind of in passing, that we as the body are learning more and more about the things that we should go after and bind, the things that are not in heaven, like sickness, demonic oppression, death, blind eyes, deafened ears, those elements of brokenness that are not going to be in heaven. That we as the church are gaining more insight on what things to bind, but that we really need to press into the things that we need to then loose. And that as the body, that those are the things that we don't know as well, but those are the things that we need to press into. As I sat with that, what I learned with Jesus is that loosing precedes binding. If you run all the way back to the beginning, that it says that Jesus was the lamb slain before the foundations of the world. And so central to the Father's heart is this aspect of laying your life down to release life. That all of that came previous to engaging a problem. There wasn't even humanity around to have the capacity to sin, much less have a problem that needed to be addressed. What that teaches me about the Father's heart is that solutions are not connected to the consideration of or even the presence of problems. Christ's life released as the solution of humanity's sin, the solution of redemption, of atonement. The solution was released and was in place before the Father even laid the foundations of existent reality. Within that, then, what I learned is that from a heavenly perspective, the loosing of heaven's solutions pre-exists the binding of the problem. That the outward flow of the Father's heart revealed in Jesus being slain as the lamb for us before the foundations of the earth speaks to the loosing of heaven's solutions previous to the binding. In Jesus speaking in Matthew chapter 12, he says that when you go in to take a house, that the strong man has to be bound first, kicked out. It says that when an evil spirit comes out of a man, it goes through dry and arid places looking for a place of rest. And when it doesn't find it, it says, I will return to the place from which I came. Going and finding the house swept clean, put in order, but unoccupied, it says, I will go out and find 7 other evil spirits, more batterer than myself. And it says that they go in there and make their home in that place. And it says that the situation of that man is worse off than when he started. If we bind things first, because we can see it. It's obvious. It's in front of our eyes. There's a demon-possessed person. We're like, hey, I have the authority to kick that demon up out of here. If we bind because we can see with our eyes and make judgments with our minds, oh, there's demonic oppression here. I have the authority to kick that out, but we don't know what is to replace it. We've actually perfected possession. We've perfected the devil's works. We've perfected the reality of hell rather than releasing the life, the solutions, and the reality of heaven. I hope that makes sense. So out of that context, it's often more in the heart of heaven to allow an evil spirit to remain than to kick it out while not knowing what is to be loosed in its place. For a biblical context, it said that God tells his people as they're going into the promised land, he says, you won't be able to drive out all of the unjust usurpers in a day, lest the wild animals become too strong for you and overwhelm you. And so God actually keeps giants, the unjust usurpers of his children's abundant life in the promised land. He uses those usurpers to hold the wild animals at bay until his people are strong enough to occupy the land and hold them back. I hope this is making sense to you. But as I spend time in the Father's heart and spend time with Jesus by his Spirit, I find that the the solutions of heaven pre-exist the binding of the problem. That the binding of the problem, if I cast out demons by the Spirit of God, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. The forward rush of the solutions of heaven, pouring forth from heaven's throne, are what push out the darkness and bind them. A heart has to be oriented to the solutions of heaven, that whatever has already been loosed in heaven will be loosed on earth, and it will be the binding of what was bound in heaven through the release of the Lamb's atonement being poured out before the foundations of the world. Loosing precedes binding. If you subscribe to what I'm doing, hit the button, hit it, and then get it. Hit the bell as well so you get notified with the new content. And if you love this video, you didn't just like it, hit the thumbs down button. Pray blessings on our lives together. I love you guys lots, and I'll see you in the next video. Yep, you guessed it, which starts now. Just gripping and ripping today. Oh, goodness. Here we go. What's up, fam? Extraordinary Life with Elijah, and just trying all kinds of new angles and working here in the studio at work, and thought, well, while I'm working on these angles at work, why not use this for this weekly video?